Hello and welcome to the WorldDAB Automotive Conference 2021. You are one of around 500 delegates from more than 55 countries around the world, representing both the broadcast and automotive sectors who've registered to attend this event to discuss the future of radio in the car. Thank you to all our speakers and to our principal sponsor, Expiry, and also to our partner sponsors, Radio Player, AVT and Gates Air. So our event today consists of 4 sessions, each one lasting approximately 1 hour. We've got a lot to cover, but don't worry, we've thought about you and factored in coffee breaks and a lunch break, so you're not going to go thirsty or hungry. We really want today to be as interactive as possible, so please do use the message board to chat to other delegates and also to let us know what you're thinking. And don't forget to post your questions in the Q&A section for all of the speakers to answer at the end of each session. So joining me in the studio for the first half of today's conference is WorldDAB President Patrick Hannon. Patrick, hello, how are you? Lovely to have you here with us today.
Pleasure to be here, Louise. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, it's great to see you. So our first session this morning looks at the bigger picture of radio in the car. How do vehicle manufacturers see the future of in-car audio? And what can the radio industry do to embrace connected technologies and keep broadcast radio central to the in-vehicle audio experience? Patrick, we're going to hear from you first with a global overview of digital radio. So I will hand over to you for that. Take it away.
Louise, thank you very much. And may I say, it's a pleasure to be here in a TV studio, not in my bedroom, particularly if we've got 500 people attending. So anyway, so my job today is to give a brief introduction to what we're going to be covering over the next 4 hours. So I've got a short presentation. I'll run you through it. So the headline, titled DB Plus in Cars, European Expansion. So I think probably the key message to start with is that radio in the car is changing. But the question is, what do we mean by that? Well, the first major change is that DAB Plus is now standard in the majority of new cars. And what you can see here is that in all the major European markets, at least 80% of new cars now come with DAB Plus as standard. And if we look more closely at the countries on the right-hand side, you can see that there's been a significant shift in the key EU markets between 2019 and 2020. Just taking Germany as an example, in the second half of 2019, fewer than a quarter of new cars came with DAB+. In the second half of last year, it was 80%. And actually, we expect that progress to continue, driven by the European Electronic Communications Code. Now, this is a European directive that took effect from December of last year. And basically it means that all new car radios sold in the EU will need to have digital terrestrial radio as standard. Now, if we look at the progress of DAB+ across Europe, we can see that it's firmly established as the core future platform for radio on the continent. The dark blue countries, those are markets that are already well established and you have been on air for at least, for several years. I mean, Germany, as an example, launched in 2011. But what we can see then is that, so those are dark blue countries. Then we've got the expansion, the green countries. So this is France, Sweden, Poland, Czech Republic. So those are the countries that are more recent launches. And then finally, on the right-hand side, we have countries that have got trials underway. Now, the big news for 2021 is that France is going to be launching national DAB+ services. Now, they already have 10 cities and regions on air, but in October of this year, they'll be launching 2 new national multiplexes, bringing 25 services to listeners. So this is really going to transform the radio market in France. The other market that's really undergoing a significant change is Switzerland, which will be switching off its FM signals between 2022 and 2023. The public broadcaster will be switching off in August of 22, and the private stations will follow in January 2023. Now, if we take a quick look at some of the other markets, I won't go through everywhere, but just to give you some highlights. In the UK, over 16 million cars are now on the road with DAB+. In Germany, we had the launch of a second national multiplex in October of last year. And in North Rhine-Westphalia, before the end of this year, there's going to be, for the first time, a private commercial multiplex. And then in Italy, we have they introduced legislation that requires not only automotive but also consumer receivers to have DAB+, and that's been in place since January 2020. And in all of those markets, there's a firm commitment to making DAB+ the core standard of radio. So what's driving this growth? Well, three key things I wanted to highlight. Number one is choice. On average, you get 6 times as many services on DAB+ as you do on FM. The second is sound quality. So DAB offers clearer, more consistent sound, particularly where FM is overcrowded. And then thirdly, DAB is the green solution. DAB+ consumes significantly less energy than FM, and a BBC study that was published at the end of last year showed that per listening hour, DAB was 33% more efficient than FM. So what's going to happen next? There are 3 steps to the WorldDAB automotive strategy. The first is to get DAB+ in cars. Now, we've seen that's already been achieved. Secondly, we want to make sure that the DAB experience is as good as it possibly can be. And thirdly, as Louise said at the start, we want to make sure that DAB is properly optimized within the connected car. So let's look at the second of those, so improving the DAB+ experience. About 5 years ago, we set up the WorldDAB Automotive Working Group, and this brought together the broadcasters, the network operators, and the car makers to try and make sure that we're all working together to make the DAB experience in car as good as possible. So the first thing that we highlighted was that listeners need simple navigation. So they need a radio button. The way to present the stations is in an A to Z station list, and presets should be easy to program and to understand. You want to make it easy for listeners to find your station. Secondly, listeners deserve great audio quality. And this is really a question. The challenge here is making sure that the transmitters and the antenna in the car are both working in concert together. So as I say, we brought the car makers and the network operators together to iron out some of the minor problems that we were finding. And it's really about optimizing antenna performance. We created test routes in all the major markets so the car manufacturers can make sure that the radios are working properly before they release those cars to the market. That has worked really well. And it's interesting now, the same group, the next thing on its agenda will be looking at electric vehicles to understand what are the implications, if there are any, for antenna performance. And then the third thing is that listeners need to have strong visual experience. In the cars, we have these large displays, and these are important both for the motorist and for the passengers. And so our recommendation is that the visuals and the logos need to be there to maximise the impact on the dashboard. And this is important not only for the listeners in the car, but also because this is what the competition are doing. When we think of the likes of Google, Amazon, Apple, and so on, they will be making good use of this space, and radio needs to be part of that environment. So we've made a lot of progress in those areas already. The key challenge going forward is optimizing DAB+ to work with internet platforms. So the 3 things I wanted to highlight here. The first is that we're embracing hybrid radio. So this is where you're combining both DAB and IP. And just to give you a simple example, if you're listening to a DAB service in a city and you drive out of that city, then at some stage you will lose a signal. And that's where the internet can come in and provide that additional coverage. Secondly, it allows you to have additional data, additional visuals, such as enhanced station logos, for example. And also, I think very importantly, is the potential for personalization and interactivity. And the example that I would give here is you linking podcasts to linear programming. So you just listen to a program on a particular theme. There may be related podcasts that can be given to you, delivered by the internet. The second is to make sure that we're engaging with the automotive, the online platforms that are increasingly common in cars. So currently we're engaging with Android Automotive, and we'll be hearing from one of the speakers later on this morning. WorldDAB members are part of this project. And I think one of the things that's been very evident from this involvement is that because WorldDAB involves not only the broadcasters but also the car makers, it's really ensured that we've brought a cross-sector perspective to the whole question of how radio is displayed in the car. And then finally, we're focusing increasingly on using voice as a key user interface. The likes of Siri, Alexa, Google Assistant, these voice assistants are well established in cars, and radio needs to be part of this ecosystem. Users are increasingly familiar, from home use as much as anything, with voice assistants, and radio needs to be part of that ecosystem. So to wrap up, 3 key messages. Number 1, DAB+ is now standard in new European cars, so that's a major shift. Number 2, and I should add, by the way, also in Australia. Number 2, DAB+ experience has been simplified and improved. And number 3, our goal now is to make sure that DAB+ is fully integrated in the connected car. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the day.
Thank you very much, Patrick. 80% across some European markets really is a positive figure to report. Don't forget, you can leave your questions on the message wall for any of our speakers today, and they'll be more than happy to answer those for you in due course. Now, before we hear from our next speaker, let's just take a little bit of footage from WorldDAB Auto Group.
WorldDAB, working with the automotive sector. Drivers love radio, and radio is going digital. DAB+ is now in all new cars across Europe. WorldDAB brings together the experts, broadcasters, network operators, and the auto sector. Together, they produce the best digital radio experience for drivers. The WorldDAB Automotive Working Group focuses on putting the driver at the heart of the design process, providing a richer visual radio experience using metadata, optimizing the performance of digital radio, and ensuring aftermarket devices provide a quality experience. Our Automotive Help Point provides support to help manufacturers and broadcasters. Find out more at www.worlddab.org/automotive.
Well, next up, what do the car industry think are the opportunities and threats for DAB digital radio at present and in the future? Let's go over to Martin Koch, Head of Development, Entertainment and Car Functions at Cariad Volkswagen Group, to tell us about what's driving the automotive industry. Martin.
Thank you very much. So, good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure for me to guide you through my view on what's driving the automotive industry today and in the future. So my name is Martin Koch. I'm Head of Development, Entertainment and Car Functions at Volkswagen Cariad. Cariad is the newly formed automotive software branch of the Volkswagen Group. And I want to guide you through, at first, the changes we are currently facing in the WorldDAB Automotive Working Group. Since I have the pleasure to chair this group starting from this January, I took over from Lawrence Harrison from Radio Player. He's done a fantastic job and is still doing a fantastic job in the Automotive Working Group. Thank you, Lawrence. Along with me, I have my colleague Gregor Koch. He is chairing the UX Working Group. And along with us is Roberto Moro, and he's chairing the Aftermarket Working Group. The Automotive Working Group, we set ourselves 5 key goals for this period. Goal number 1 is industry collaboration. Number 2 is metadata campaign. You should already heard about the project logo. If not, then look it up on the WorldDAB website. Of course, it's user experience, it's voice control, and it's new technologies. And 2 of those focus areas I want to cover today in my talk. And so let's start with the agenda for today. So at first, I want to echo what Patrick already said about DAB+ fitment in the cars. I want to give you my view on the 2 mega trends in automotive infotainment and what does this mean for the radio in the car, and what are my recommendations to the broadcasters in order to cope with those challenges. But first, DAB+ fitment. Next slide, please. I think it's time to celebrate, right? So thanks to EECC, we are approaching almost 100% standard fitment in DAB+. And to wrap it up, the position of digital radio in the car was never better than today. And it is, of course, a good starting point for the future. Talking about future, so coming to the megatrends, and what does this mean for radio? Megatrend number 1 is passenger displays. So displays not only for the driver, but also for the co-driver. And I think we all have seen these renderings of future cockpits since years, and we are somehow saved in our minds. You know, this is the future. This will happen somewhere in the future. But if we come to the next slide, we will see the Byton M-Byte, which is a series production car, which will come to Europe in, as far as I know, 2022. So the future is not so far ahead. On the next page, we see the Mercedes EQS with passenger display coming out this August. And to even go a little bit more in the history of that, we need to go back to the past, since this is the Porsche Taycan, which is around for almost 1 year, which features a co-driver display. So I ask you, what would you do if you would sit in front of this brilliant display? You want to have attractive visual content. So might it be video, might it be games, might it be browsing through the latest releases of your favorite artists? No, please stay back. And all this, of course, influences the consumption of linear media. And my question is broadcast radio making use out of these brilliant displays we already have? And my feeling is, no, we are not doing this. And we have technology ways to bring visual content along with the audio content to the cars. First, there is DAB+ slideshow, and the UX working group are currently working on guidelines and best practices, how to do attractive but not distracting DAB slideshow for the car. And this will be incorporated in the next release of the UX guidelines, and you should definitely consider that. And for the larger screens, where you want to have full resolution imagery, you should consider online slideshow over hybrid radio. Because there you can have full resolution images without using DAB+ bandwidth. So over radio DNS, for example. But I talked to Nick Piggott, who is the project director of Radio DNS, and asked him how many services do we have for online slideshow? And he told me there are 20 worldwide. 20 stations are supporting online slideshow. And for my understanding, this is not enough to really talk about providing a brilliant visual experience to drivers and co-drivers. So my recommendation for the broadcast industry: make use out of the technologies we already have in place, and make yourself concepts for attractive visual content accompanying the audio programming. And it's not only the station logo or weather information. There can be so much more which attracts your customers and keeps them listening to your station and not switching to another media source or other content. So this is my recommendation for megatrend number 1. Megatrend number 2, and I think we will hear more about this, next slide please, is Android Automotive. What we have here is a picture of the Polestar, which was, for my understanding, the first Android Automotive car out in the market, which has a very puristic and minimalistic integration of Android Automotive. But there will be more cars coming. So why should we care about Android, since it's an operating system and we did not care in the past about Linux or QNX? I think Android Automotive is different in 2 ways. Aspect number 1, how good is the support of digital radio DAB+ out of the box with Android Automotive? And today we see some weaknesses So the Android Automotive is not supporting all DAB+ features out of the box today, but we identified this challenge, and we, from WorldDAB, teamed up with the NAB, with broadcasters, audio manufacturers, and Xperi in order to identify these rooms for improvement and put together some suggestions how to fix them for Google in future versions of Android Automotive. So aspect number one, the support of digital radio. We are currently tackling this challenge. Aspect number two of Android Automotive is, of course, due to its standardization and the freely available development tools, almost everyone can develop his or her own Android Automotive app. And in the car, there will be popping up so many apps, which are, of course, endangering the unique position of radio. But we can make a chance out of this challenge. Besides having music streaming service and podcast services, the broadcasters should consider, and this is my recommendation for megatrend number two, consider porting your Android app in the future to Android Automotive and provide them through the relevant app stores to the dash of the car. There is, of course, the Google store where you should put your app in, but there are other stores which are relevant for the automotive industry, like the store from Hannon, the Ignite store. So this is my recommendation for megatrend number two. Consider putting your own Android Automotive app in place. And since my 10 minutes are almost over, I need to sum up and come to the final slide. My conclusions for today. The position of DAB+ was never better inside the car thanks to the EECC. In the car, there are more and more options fighting for the ears and fighting for the eyeballs. And I strongly recommend giving yourself some new concepts about accompanying visuals with your audio broadcast in order to attract the customers in front of those large screens. And consider doing DAB+ slideshow and online slideshow. Android Automotive is an opportunity, is a challenge, but it's an opportunity in order to complete your own portfolio with your own app, having broadcast on the one side and IP content on the other side to have a complete portfolio for your listeners. And there are several stores for the automotive sector which you should consider putting your app into. So that's basically everything I have for you this morning. And I'm happy to receive then in the Q&A section some questions from you. So that's all from my side. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Martin. And yeah, do get in touch and send us through your questions. We'll be getting to those at the end of the session. A clear message for us in Martin's chat there that radio is hugely important to the driver, which is great for our audience to hear, especially those of you from the broadcasting sector who are with us today. And who better to give us the broadcaster's perspective than our next guest? He's the Director of Technology and Innovation at the European Broadcasting Union. It's Antonio Arcidiacono. Antonio, the floor is all yours. Take it away.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for inviting me to this conference. It's a very interesting subject, and I've been listening carefully to the first two presentations. I think that's really in the flow of what I will say in my presentation. What I will give is a perspective on where we are, from the starting point which has been already illustrated, where we can give for the future, and some sort of provocative also proposals that can be taken over and developed in the future. So the first thing I would start from, and I would start from my first slide. Unfortunately, I have no feedback, so I don't know whether where this is appearing. What we need to do is to improve the user experience in the area of Android Automotive. We heard Martin speaking about Android, speaking about all the advantages that will come with it. But one element which is very important is that hybrid radio has successfully transformed the user experience of radio. Broadcast broadband delivers for audience. And the arrival of Android Automotive could enable the next major leap forward. This is very important. For an always connected driver, we need to take advantage of the different tuners. Of course, the cellular, but the DAB+, and in the future, the 5G broadcasting, and who knows, maybe also the satellite. This is important. We need a multi-tuner management at the Android level, and it doesn't make sense to step backward. We need to learn from what we have done, which is very positive, and grow into the future. So allowing broadcasters to create both shared and personalized experience using a combination of these distribution paths. So this is very important, and this is what the broadcasters need to have. Next slide, please. So the broadcast spectrum is a first point of discovery and prominence for broadcasters. Hybrid radio makes this more visually appealing. Logos, additional information, links to services. These are fundamental elements that we need to have if we want to be visible there. The radio app is the launchpad, is our launchpad, and the links to the broadcaster's own apps and environment provided their own branded live experience, automatically downloaded and seamlessly linked. And then we can add the additional services, looking to archives, to past shows, to podcasts, and then the all on-demand elements of it. And this is something that will help us, for sure, improve the experience and leverage all the advantages of going into a modern operating system like the Android One. And this can also be offered, of course, to car manufacturers and to OEM, allowing them to build their offering with trusted broadcast content. So that's a fundamental part in our development. Next slide, please. Then there is the fundamental part, which remains the part of the user, and always looking at what the user is looking for. What I say is that my content should be adapted to my road. I need to have an experience that will make the distance, the traffic, the location disappear, and being immersed in an experience that will help me enjoy my trip and not be and relieve the weight of my trip, and having a pleasant experience and not feeling the time passing. And radio has been, for the last few tens of years, the original social audio platform in the car. We need to exchange, and this is the source of subjects, discussion of elements that then you will share in a group experience. This is the whole advantage of broadcasting. The personalization is important, but is a side element that we need to have. What is important in the radio experience and in the car radio experience is that you can also be listening to your, say, news, to your dialogues, to your exchanges, and then have a subject on which you can share socially with other people. So this is an element that we cannot miss. And now let's go one step further into the future. Next slide, please. And I will speak about the zero button experience. Today, we have recommendation engines. We have tools that are allowing us to use our experience in a very personalized and adapted way to what we need. And what we can do here is we could go and sit in our car that knows you and offers you an adaptive user experience. This is really possible. And this is possible also thanks to all the sensors and the biometrics that you can collect in the future. So recommendation engines like the one we have developed at EBU, the pitch, the personalization for each, that knows the context of your journey and understands your feelings and your environment, can serve you in the best possible way. So you can walk into the car, sit, listen to news for 5-10 minutes. Then it will automatically switch to maybe some music or some entertainment program, or to a podcast, and so on. The dynamic recommendation from the live content can also enrich this experience. Today, we are experimenting solutions where getting the live content, we are able to extract information and dynamically recommend new contents for you. So this is the bridge between the on-demand part and the live part. This is something that I expect to develop in the near future. And then your car can also speak your language. Through projects like the Eurovox that we are developing, which is a system to provide content in your mother tongue, no matter which is the original language in which this has been produced. This could be very helpful, for example, when you travel abroad, your local news and content can be listened to. I am an Italian, I will be driving in Germany, and I will be able to understand what's happening in my neighborhood. And this could be also pleasant on one side and can be also very useful in critical moments. So that's one other element that I believe we can develop. And all the tools are there, the intelligence of the artificial intelligence systems at our disposal. So last slide for me is the next one. That I would like to come with, and this is about the future. The future, of course, is immersive audio, of course, but we are going towards the autonomous cars. And there we are opening a full range of possibilities, new ways of enjoying your trip, new ways of living into your car. So, of course, immersive audio, we've been showing this. And, for example, with Martin Koch, the colleagues of Audi, we have been showing this in a really nice way in the cars. But this is also full immersive video that could happen in the future. Of course, the vision of the full immersive video covering the whole car could be maybe extreme, but the video part will definitely help you enjoying your trip when the car is driving on its own. Augmented reality, is this going to be the development there? When is this going to happen? In the coming years, it depends on the autonomous cars availability, but this is something to prepare for and something that will develop. And last but not least, car means mobility. We need 100% coverage at a sustainable cost. So what I was starting with in my presentation, where I said that we need to be able to get content from all possible sources, this being internet, this being DAB+, this being in the future 5G broadcast or satellite. This will provide 100% coverage at a sustainable cost. And so this multi-layer distribution should be embedded in the way in which you content and to profit from it using all the tools that are. I will stop here and, of course, ready to take your questions. And thank you again for the opportunity to speak at this conference.
That was a really great overview of what the public broadcaster's focus is in terms of cars. Patrick, what a great start to the day. We've had some really interesting speakers. You've been listening intently. What have been your key sort of learnings, your key takeaways so far?
The number one, DAB is now in cars across Europe. I mean that that is quite new. I mean we've been working on it for several years. The UK has had DAB Plus as standard in new cars for a while, but for the rest of Europe, it's only in the last 12 months that that's really happened. So that's a game changer. So that's number one. That was my message. But I was glad that Martin also picked it up. I think the other thing for me. I mean, there are lots of different messages, but what I'm really pleased about from today's session is that we have Martin representing the car makers and we have Antonia representing the broadcasters and bringing those two together because, you can see there's lots of interesting ideas, loads of them, but they're only going to come to fruition if the two sides work together. And so the fact that we're all having the same conversations, we're talking to each other, we're working together, that's always been the key to success. And it's going to be the key to success, as you can see, over the next 3-5 years or so.
Patrick, thank you. Thank you very much. And as you say, yes, working and collaborating with people is really important. And working with the broadcasters from the United States is important here at WorldDAB. Caroline Beasley, who's CEO of Beasley Media Group, is coming up next in conversation with Joseph D'Angelo to tell us about how new technologies are being used to keep radio strong and vibrant.
Okay, there's 7 minutes on VT, everybody. So welcome everyone to the 2021 WorldDAB Automotive Workshop. I'm very pleased to have Caroline Beasley with us here today. Hopefully this will be the last of these virtual events we're having. Caroline is CEO of Beasley Media Group, current chair of the BMI Board of Directors. She is the immediate past board chair, joint board chair of the National Association of Broadcasters, and was recently announced as the recipient of the 2021 National Radio Award for her outstanding commitment to and dedication to the U.S. broadcast industry. Welcome, Caroline.
Well, thank you, Joe. It's so wonderful to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me, and also to the WorldDAB. Great.
Well, why don't we begin by you telling us a little bit more about Beasley Media, because you're certainly more than just a traditional radio broadcast group.
Yes, so thank you for that question. We are celebrating our 60th year in business this year. My dad started the company by building a little AM station in 1961, and today we have 62 stations across 15 markets and reach over 20 million people on a weekly basis. In addition to our traditional side, we also have expanded our offerings to digital, of course, our O&O digital products, and we have a digital advertising department as well. And then we're getting into esports too. So it's pretty exciting. Our focus is to grow revenue, diversify our revenue streams, create great original content, and then of course we're a for-profit company, so we're all focused on the bottom line.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. And your leadership and innovation in technology has really been exemplary. I've seen a lot of it firsthand in our work with Q. And I think the audience would really benefit from hearing a little bit more about what Q does and really your motivation for kind of getting behind a company like that.
Yeah, so we were approached maybe a little over 10 years ago to be an investor in Q, and no other radio company was using this technology at the time, and it just seemed like an opportunity for broadcasters to be able to compete in the audio space, because we were seeing other technology, come on the forefront with Sirius XM at the time, and then of course other streaming companies, and we want to look as good as we sound. And so Q provides us that opportunity. We're able to match song title and artist along with display the advertisers who are going over the air. We're able to display that in the dashboard as well.
Sure. And with the evolution of digital radio and the fact we have about 80 million cars on the road that can take advantage of that rich visuals, I think that's a really wise investment and opportunity for the industry. How do you see it fitting in with your overall digital strategy when you look to combine over the air with maybe some of your IP properties?
Yeah, we absolutely expect to integrate that. It doesn't matter. Q is not just a traditional for traditional radio. It spans across multiple platforms. So for us and the industry, it's a great opportunity for the industry. Again, it just provides a path for us to be able to communicate with our audience on a visual side, and also provide more return for our advertisers.
Right, and I think that's really important. And they have global potential, correct? I mean, Q can work on a DAB radio station just as well as it can an HD radio station.
Absolutely, and that's the plan and the footprint going forward as well.
That's great. So we obviously have a long history of working together back in the early days of Ubiquity. You see the company evolve from Ubiquity to DTS, now Xperi. What are some of your observations of working with us as a technology provider?
Yeah, I was thinking about this over the course of the last couple of days, and we were really excited to be, one of the first broadcasters to participate in HD, and that allowed us to have more side channels available to target niche programming, if you will. But what we also saw with the acquisition of Ubiquity from DTS and then Xperi purchasing DTS, I mean, first of all, your CEO, he is definitely focused forward, and we love that. You have been around since the beginning, and so the consistency is important. So you're our trusted person with Xperi now, and so what you're doing today with your acquisition of TiVo last year and AutoStage coming out, it's just, I'm very thankful that we're a partner with you all, and broadcasters should be pleased that, you know, you're offering us the opportunity to do things that we would not otherwise be able to do.
It's great. Thank you for that. And we're also very grateful for the relationship. Are there any parting words you'd like to leave with the audience? Any recommendations?
Yeah, I think it's just important for us to focus forward, right? I mean, technology is changing minute by minute, second by second, and we cannot stay, you know, as traditional broadcasters, you see that. We're not going to. And so what opportunities are out there? What technology is out there so that we can compete with the new audio companies that, you know, want to take our audience, and that's what we're focused on.
Sure, big tech is a threat, and I think if the industry can unite with a common voice, you're going to have a real loud response.
Oh, yes, and to add to that, you know, our data on our audience is so important, and with what you all are doing with hybrid radio, it offers us the ability to keep our data, and it also works with Q as well. So that's an opportunity that we're really excited about.
That's great. Well, thank you very much, Caroline, for your time and your insight. And clearly, radio is very well positioned for a future in the digital dash. Sit back and enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you very much to Caroline and Joe. As you heard from them, we are stronger together. And talking of being together, we know there are people listening in from all around the globe. So just let us know where you're listening from. We'll give you a bit of a shout out, and obviously get your questions in to us as well. And we'll be putting those on to all of our panelists today. In fact, it's time now for the first of our Q&As. Unfortunately, because of the time difference, Caroline couldn't be here with us live. But as I say, do feel free to send through any questions that you'd like. And in fact, if you've got questions for Caroline, we'll be sure to pass them on to her. So we've already had some questions coming in from our audience. So let's go straight over to those. And in fact, my first question, Patrick, is for you. This has come from Hein Zentgraf, who wants to know, will any vehicles be fitted with DRM as opposed to DAB+?
That'll be up to the car manufacturers. I mean, you know, there are very few DRM stations. In fact, I'm not sure there's any DRM stations on air in Europe. So, you know, my guess would probably be no, not in the short term.
Okay. Next up, we've got one for Martin. Martin, this comes from David Leyer in the US. David wants to know, can a broadcaster's Android Automotive app access the tuner in the vehicle?
So at the moment, this is not allowed by the Android system, and maybe this changes in the future. But I think if Android should allow this, we should consider, let's say, effects on, let's say, station following or traffic announcements, and if there is, let's say, all answers are given. But we will see if this happens.
Thank you. Antonio, one for you now. Do you think broadcasters see the danger to the car space? And are they moving fast enough to see the opportunities and fight the threats?
In my presentation and in the answer of Martin, it is already embedded, the answer there. I mean, the evolution towards Android and the idea that this will be only for IP connectivity over cellular network, this is not something that makes sense. I mean, it will be a step backward, and we are not going to be pleased by a decision of this kind. And so there is all the technical possibility to embed management of multiple tuners. It's just a matter of us broadcasters say, that we want to have this functionality, and the people at Google to listen to what we are asking for. Now, the technical problem, the orchestration, the ability to signal, etc., these are solutions that we have been already tackling in the world of OTT services and in the world of HBB-TV, DVI, for the TV applications, for the audiovisual world as a whole. So I don't see the technical problem. It's more a political problem. And we need to use the advantages of broadcasting. And as I said at the end of my presentation, it is very important to be able to use multiple infrastructures, because take the case of UK, for example. In UK, only 55% of the roads are covered by the 4G network. Then what do you do if you are IP only when you are in the remaining part, in the 40+% of the roads? You switch off and you stay silent? I mean, it doesn't make sense, this. So this means that you need to have a flexible interface that will allow to use multiple tuners. I mean, it's so logic. So I understand the difficulties with the industry, but we need to find a solution. This is purely an engineering problem. It's not even a political or commercial problem. It's purely an engineering problem, so the solution is there and easy to find.
Thank you, Antonio. A popular question coming in here. It's for you, Patrick. Really good news for DAB, but what can be done to support countries that still have no DAB? And Paddy, who's asked the question, has given Spain as an example of that.
Yes, no, well, good question. I mean, what we've seen really over the last 10 years is a gradual rolling out. And there's in the end, there's two reasons why people go for DAB+. One is it's just a good idea, and they can see the benefits of it, whether that's for the listener, for the broadcaster, for society at large. So that's, on the one hand, that's your rational. And then you've got, and it's because everybody else is doing it. And what we've seen is that since Germany launched in 2011, I mean, the UK, Norway, Denmark and Switzerland started in the early 2000s. But it was only when Germany started in 2011, then we got this sort of domino effect of, it was Germany 2011, Netherlands 2013, Italy 2014, and so on. Now we're seeing France. So my personal big hope is that if France makes a success of it, then the Spanish, who are obviously just over the border, will sort of like, oh, look what's happening there. Maybe we should be getting involved. I mean, it's very clear that DAB is established as sort of the core European standard. And the fact that, and one of the things that's really changed is that cars in Spain will now be having DAB as standard installed. And that was, there was always a chicken and egg thing. Well, now we have a chicken, or possibly we have an egg, but whichever it is, it's going to be there. So, we need to get the broadcasters in Spain on board. And that's taken time so far. They haven't shown a great deal of enthusiasm, but maybe that will change.
Steps in the right direction then for everybody in Spain. Yeah. Keep your questions coming in. As I say, we're going to get through as many of those as we can. If we don't get a chance to get to them live, then we'll pass them on to the speakers. I think now we've got time for one final question before we break, and that is to Martin. Martin comes from Remy, and he says, any suggestions on how radio stations can support the adaptive user experience recommendation engines? PTY is a first step, but not sufficient.
Yeah, this is true. So PTY is only, let's say, a very pure and very minimalistic way in order to find out if a customer is liking a sort of a station or sort of music style. So from my understanding, there are ways in hybrid radio to explain much more in detail what your station is about. And I think the rest of the, let's say, customization could be done over IP with technologies, as Antonio mentioned, the Peach project, or with opportunities in Android Automotive. So I think in the future, there will be, let's say, coherent ways, but not only over broadcast, but over broadcast and IP.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for all your answers. Thanks for your questions as well. Do keep them coming in. We've got lots more speakers coming up over the course of the day. So we are going to take a short coffee break now, but we look forward to joining you again in just a few minutes for the next of our sessions here at the World DAB Automotive Conference 2021.